Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Double Upload Special. Today we're going to be talking about the Olympics because it seems like nobody is. In fact, it's literally the lowest rated Olympics ever, dude. So let's make fun of it. I'm getting quiet now. Laying low when you reach zone, wiping out, making out, stack the bread. Before we get into it, I want to make it clear, I don't mean any disrespect towards the athletes, I know they've all trained their entire life at their sport to get here. I'm more making fun of NBC and the people in charge of, television, because they managed to take the Olympics and, can't even get people to watch it, dude. I can't believe TV just won't accept the fact that it's a dying platform at this point. If you can't get the Olympics to get good ratings, what can you get good ratings on? NBC on track for lowest rated Winter Olympics in American television history. This is almost impressive amounts of, fumbling the bag, dude. I remember when I was younger, the Olympics kind of felt like some huge event, dude. Mario and Sonic had just came out on the Wii. McDonald's had an Olympic meal. It felt like everyone's talking about it. Now, I feel like the Olympics are just kind of something that I'll be like, oh, is that happening right now? Okay, I guess. I don't know if it's just the fact that television itself isn't very popular or that, I don't watch TV anymore, but I don't know, man. I really just would not have known the Olympics wasn't going on if it wasn't for the fact that, I saw an article about it. NBC does a really bad job at getting the country to really care about what's going on recently. When it comes to the Olympics, I don't know. I just feel like nobody is really paying that much attention. And it's not a Winter Olympics thing. I don't even feel like the last Summer Olympics was as popular as I've seen in the past. NBC's Mike Tirico began Friday's opening ceremony by saying, "Just over 6 months ago in Tokyo, we said we were about to embark on an Olympics like any other. Now we're about to top that. In the case of ratings, though, topping has meant producing new record lows." Damn, bro, this article's really not pulling punches. You guys really did set up to embark on an Olympic like any other. The most unpopular one ever seen. My goodness, that was a kill shot. Seriously though, I just feel like the fact that this and the last Olympics have been the lowest rated ever is really surprising when you consider the fact that most people have been home as well. I understand that the pandemic's been going on for 2 years now, but it's bizarre that the lowest rated Olympics have taken place during a time when more people are supposed to be inside. To me, I don't work at NBC, but that rings more of a television/network problem than it does an Olympics problem. Because you would think during a time when everyone's locked inside, we would be even more keen to watch the Olympics, watch all these athletes go out and compete for our country. But instead, nobody really cared, man. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that they've just made it the most boring coverage. This is obviously just purely a personal opinion. Usually when you're watching the Olympics, it's really fun to watch. It's super engaging. I don't know how NBC has managed to take every Olympic event and just turn it into the athletic equivalent of watching paint dry. It's almost impressive how bad they are at making anything fun to watch. Through the first 4 nights of competition, NBC is on track for the lowest rated Winter Games in history. Friday night's coverage on NBC, USA Network, and Peacock averaged 12.8 million views, down significantly from the 27.8 million average in Pyeongchang 4 years ago. Thursday night's audience of 8 million marks the smallest primetime Olympics audience on record, surpassing the 9 million that tuned in for the closing ceremony of the Tokyo Games. Man, even with the streaming service added, the fact that it's down, 47-50% from 4 years ago is just a sign of how bad, the network has to be doing with this. Maybe it's something bigger. Maybe Americans just hate sports now, bro. Maybe the Olympics is just no longer cool. Maybe I'm missing out on something, but I also feel like if people knew it was going on, they'd probably watch it a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm just delusional. Olympics are a thing of the past that aren't going to be popular anymore, but it's shocking to see it go from 30 million viewers to 15 million in one Olympic cycle. And it's not like this Winter Olympics in particular is doing bad. As you guys saw there, the closing Olympics for the Tokyo Olympics a year ago were the lowest rated before. Or the closing ceremony, sorry, you guys know what I'm saying. So it's not like this is a situation of just the Winter Games being less popular than the Summer Games or something. We're talking about back-to-back, the lowest-rated Olympics by a massive margin within, like, the last 2 years. That doesn't tend to bode incredibly well for the future of something, you know, and obviously it is what it is with media, things become less popular over time. But you would think that, like, a worldwide competition for sports where everybody's countries are going head-to-head and, you know, it's the best of the best in the world, would it be able to be a little bit more of a draw than this, losing 50% of its audience every time there's an Olympics? I don't know. Maybe I'm just dramatically out of touch, but I feel like if they gave other television networks a chance to make content for the Olympics, or, you know, maybe not have as much of an exclusive contract where NBC can just be the only people that really have Olympic footage, at least in the US, I think. Maybe it would make the content a little bit better and bring the popularity back. I've never really understood super exclusivity deals when it comes to, like, the Olympics and stuff, only because I feel like what tends to happen is, like, you know, the more people you have able to make content, the better content you're going to get. I don't know, it seems obvious to me that if you're the only person allowed to cover the Olympics over time, you might get a little bit stagnant in your job. Competition isn't a bad thing, it's meant to make you better. The numbers are stark but not a surprise. Strained relations between the United States and China due to economic and human rights issues, and another Olympics held during the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lack of buzz coming into the games have been significant factors. There are a whole range of subliminal factors that are negatives when it comes to an event in China, said Neil Pearson, the former president of CBS Sports, who now runs his own sports television consulting company. It just adds to the obvious issues, and it leads to the American public not being as interested in the games this year. Alright, I'm not gonna deny that, like, diplomatic relations with China might be a factor, but I also feel like a lack of buzz is probably more of a significant factor than, like, economic relations. You know, I'm not trying to insult the average American, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say the dead average Joe does not really care about the current economic diplomatic relations with China, or like why we're having sanctions placed on them for human rights. They probably don't know. I'm not trying to insult, you know, like people should know, but the average American probably does not know that information. I think a majority of this lack of interest probably falls more square on the fact that, like, I don't know, nobody knows it's going on. Like, you would think, fine, even if tensions are super strained between the US and China, you would use that to your advantage when promoting this and be like, the athletes take center stage as the government relations are strained. We turn to sports to bind us together and show us that true competition does not have to lead to war or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, make it some big thing about sportsmanship and peace, or, you know. Bing bang, everybody's more interested. But no, instead it's like, hey guys, if you feel like watching the Olympics, maybe go click it if you want. Come on, dude, you gotta build some buzz. Buzz isn't just gonna come naturally, you gotta make people excited for the Olympics. Tokyo, which was the Olympics last year, primetime viewership decreased 47% compared to Rio in 2016. If NBC can keep that decline at the same rate when measuring the audience from 4 years ago, they should consider that a victory. But even though the numbers look bleak, not everything is dire at NBC. The primetime coverage remains the most watched event on network television and won all 4 nights significantly. And when comparing 2018 to 2022, none of the shows popular 4 years ago that are still on the air have larger audiences. I think this is like my favorite positive spin at the end of the article. They're like, no, you don't understand. Every TV show is dying and doesn't have everyone watching it anymore. It's like, yeah, but aren't you guys streaming the Olympics too? Like, you know what I mean? Shouldn't you be pushing that a little bit harder then? Listen, I don't think anyone's gonna sit here and deny that TV is dying. It is what it is. Chances are by the time that, like, our generation is 40, 50, TV will be like a shell of whatever it was when we were kids. It's already a shell of what it was like 5 years ago. I don't think there's any denying that. But you look at the fact that, you know, everything's down 50%, even the Olympics isn't getting strong viewership. It really does make me wonder if TV is going to be able to have a comeback. I'm not surprised that people aren't necessarily stoked on it. TV as a platform, dude, like watching an NFL game is painful. I like football, but having to watch more commercials than I do sports definitely gets a little tiring after a little bit. And so, you know, you compare that to normal TV, it's obvious to me why people aren't stoked to be watching normal television when streaming is an option. And on top of that, when it comes to like the Olympic coverage, I haven't been watching any NBC streams. Everything that I have watched has basically been like recordings of stuff on YouTube TV, just the events that I want. So sure, that's still counting towards viewership, but I just think the way that people consume content is changing. I don't think in the future people are going to turn into an 8-hour broadcast with a bunch of different sports and just, you know, commentary, people telling stories. They're going to log in, watch what they want to watch, and get off, because that's how our generation kind of looks at this stuff, you know? We don't really want to watch a bunch of crap we don't really have any interest in. We just want to watch what pertains to us and then stop watching. Overall, though, I just thought this was interesting. The Olympics were always something that I thought were a big deal, so the fact that it's like, you know, not getting viewership anymore, I just figured we could talk about it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think it's, you know, the Olympics are just lame now? Do you think it's a TV thing? Let me know what your solution would be. If you really want to help me out, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the intro song down below, along with a link to my podcast, the Scuffed Cast, or, of course, you could use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout to get a discount on G Fuel. The top link in the description is going to be a link to my Spotify show, so if you want to do me a favor and click that, you can listen to my stories offline, so I'd appreciate it. And the last link in the description is a link to the merch store where you can get yourself this hoodie, which might actually be the coolest thing to ever exist, so be sure to go get yourself one. And yeah, on that note, guys, I think that'll do it for the video. Don't get anyone pregnant if you do. Make sure they're hot. I'm gonna go not watch the Olympics now if anybody needs me.